It's time to get into Dez Bryant and where perhaps he could go. But in terms of why he's still unsigned, there are a few reasons, Tom, and ones that come atop of mind for me. The fact that Dez has been very selective in terms of where he wants to go, and he's looking for a one-year prove-it type of deal, something the Baltimore Ravens did not offer him. You, of course, know that he rejected that offer, whatever the case may be.
There have actually been kind of surprisingly conflicting reports so far around Dez Bryant. There was the one from Ian Rappaport most recently that said, no, he's had interest, he's just taking his time, waiting for the perfect fit, which kind of makes it sound like it came from Dez Bryant's camp. There have been other reports of saying, nah, we're really not all that interested in Bryant, which probably talking to other NFL teams that
somewhere in the middle
might not be interested in Dez Bryant. Here's part of the reason why. The timing of Dez Bryant's release really hurt him. If he had been a free agent at the beginning of the season, offseason I should say, he would have been signed already. I mean, look, Dante Moncrief got $10 million, almost $10 million per year. Dez would have gotten signed, but the issue is all those teams that could have been options, the Bears, the Jaguars, even the Ravens in particular, and even the Saints, I think, on some end too. They all signed other players. So you don't want to bring in somebody else that's not necessarily going to be all that cheap. So a big reason why Dez Bryant isn't signed is the timing, and I do believe when Dez says overall that he does want to take his time here. He does not want to rush into this. He wants to find the perfect fit, and as we've seen in the past, sometimes it pays to wait. If there's an injury to a big receiver, I'll throw out an Antonio Brown, God forbid, all of a sudden Pittsburgh wants Dez Bryant real bad.
Oh, sure.
So waiting can pay off for Dez.
Supply and demand, that's the name of the game with Dez Bryant right now. Some honorable mentions for Dez: Baltimore, New Orleans, Arizona, New England, and Dallas. Let's start with Dallas, Tom. I don't think it's happening.
It's not going to happen. I'm just putting this in here so we can say it is not happening, because I've heard from many a Cowboy fan that wants Dez Bryant back. Folks, that bridge has not been burnt. That bridge has been nuked like it was a nuclear testing site. It was lit on fire, frozen, unfrozen. It was grossly abused afterward. The bridge has been destroyed. Dez is not coming back to Dallas. So I wanted to make note of that. Other teams I think could make sense. I know that, Cam, you're a big believer in the New England option for Dez.
Yes, I do want to give a shout out to my guy Zachary in the comments section. He's a frequent watcher of the Cam Rogers Show, always asking me about Dez and the Patriots. And with that, I do think New England makes a lot of sense. I think it's a classic New England move to bring in Dez Bryant. You want to tell me that New England wants to trot out Jordan Matthews, Malcolm Mitchell, who we're still waiting for to really emerge at wide receiver? Yeah, Julian Edelman's coming back from injury. Yeah, they have Chris Hogan, who's going to catch the ball in the red zone if you're double teaming Rob Gronkowski.
Still Gronk.
Still, what if you're triple teaming him? You got Dez there probably on weak single coverage.
I don't disagree with your mindset. I am kind of more in between you and producer Harris, who says it's never going to happen. I just think they're just outside the top 5. I think the Saints are more of a dark horse team. They've made enough moves that I think they don't have to. They signed Cam Meredith. They drafted Traquan Smith. They brought back Brandon Coleman for now. Baltimore did make some sense. They did draft some guys. Baltimore is the prime. If someone gets hurt, they're going to go try and get Dez Bryant again. And I'll make one more note, I did see this in the comments as well. Dez is a handful at times as well. And if you watched All or Nothing on the Cowboys, go watch it. It was great TV. Dez can be a handful. I think in the end, Dez Bryant wants to be loved, and that's a little tough. Exactly. That's a little tough to get used to early on, or when you're bringing in someone new. So Dez can be a handful, but I do think he's still got enough talent that it's worthwhile. I mean, look how long T.O. hung around for.
Sure. And
so even though Dez is not as good as T.O., let me make that crystal clear.
And T.O. could join the 49ers.
No, he's
at
not.
Some point.
Stop it. You are all
could
aboard,
happen.
You are all aboard the T.O. hype return train.
Of course.
And it's insane.
All right, so that's a look at the honorable mentions there for Dez.
Herschel Walker's going to come back next.
Hey, Brett Favre for the XFL. All right, let's go to number 5 on the list here. We've got the Indianapolis Colts. A few reasons why, Tom. There's a need. There's salary cap space, but Chris Ballard has been pretty gun-shy with his free agency signing so far.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why the Colts are 5th. I think from a need perspective, Indianapolis is much higher than number 5 because you got T.Y. Hilton and Ryan Grant, who are actually probably both in the slot, best play style-wise. And then Chester Rogers and Darius Fontaine, who's a year away, and Deion Kane, who's a year away. And then James Wright, who's bounced around the NFL as a classic late-round practice squad receiver. And then guys that probably aren't going to make the roster. So from a need perspective-wise, Dez and Andrew Luck could be fun together.
That would be ultra fun.
On the flip side, I think that if this could be a Ravens situation where Dez might not even want to go to the Colts.
It's possible.
Because he wants to, A, get revenge against the Cowboys. That is all he wants right now, is he wants revenge against Dallas for doing him dirty.
Well, let me actually ask you right then and there,
he wants
Tom.
to win.
Of course, we remember the report, and not really the report. We know that Dez wants to play the Dallas Cowboys twice a year. He said it after the release. But there's been time for the dust to settle a little bit and for him to kind of sit back and rethink things. Do you think he's still motivated by revenge as we sit here in early June?
I think a little bit. I think at a certain point, it's like, look, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
You go through the stages of a breakup, and early on, man, you're just pissed.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to be angry about it. And eventually you move on, and eventually you're able to mend those ties. And in some cases, you're able to at least communicate without wanting to try and kill each other, or at least get really angry at each other. So I think in time, Dez will move past the revenge mindset. But let's not kid ourselves here. Even in 5 years from now, if assuming Dez is still playing, he's going to like playing against the Cowboys.
Fair.
I mean, that's why Randy Moss always torched the Cowboys, because he was still a little bit mad that they didn't draft him. And adding that extra layer of motivation can be a big factor for players.
All right.
And if Dez ever plays against the Cowboys, he's going to go off. He's going to torch them.
Revenge is a factor, no doubt. Let's go to number 4 here. We've got the Green Bay Packers. And big motivation behind this, Tom, of course, the Jason Witten prediction that Dez is going to Green Bay. You look at the depth chart for Green Bay, that stinks as well. So what do you think of the Packers?
I go back and forth on Green Bay, because on one hand, you hear Aaron Rodgers say, oh, why would we cut Jordan Nelson only to sign Dez Bryant? And that does make some sense. And, you do have Jimmy Graham. You drafted a bunch of receivers. You drafted Jamon Moore out of Missouri, who is a Cortland Sutton light. You drafted Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who can absolutely fly out of South Florida. EQ St. Brown is a guy I loved out of Notre Dame. You don't need necessarily another guy long term. But on the flip side, you cut Jordy because he wasn't as good as he once was. Then again, neither is Dez Bryant. But Dez Bryant ain't going to cost you $10+ million on the salary cap. So that's where it could make some sense on that end. And yes, you drafted guys like Davis last year. And yeah, you drafted all those other players. So that makes some sense as well. But I think the other potential option here for Dez Bryant is that it makes more sense for the Cowboys or for the Packers, because wouldn't you want a 1-2-3 punch, or 4 punch, I guess, here, of Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Jimmy Graham, and Dez Bryant? Cobb can play outside, inside. Dez, I think, should play more slot going forward. Played about 82% of his stuff as a outside receiver last year. So I think that's a big issue on that end. So I think for the Packers, it makes a lot more sense than we were willing to give it credit for in terms of getting Dez Bryant on the roster. I think it would help them out in a big way.
There hasn't been much interest from the Green Bay side in favor of Dez Bryant, but things can certainly change. Injuries can happen, whatever the case. Green Bay's at number 4 on the list here as they look to bounce back from missing the playoffs for the first time since 2008, Tom. And perhaps you could make the argument that Mike McCarthy, his seat is getting a little too warm for his liking. And the Packers could make some rash moves, crazy moves, i.e. signing Dez Bryant to improve upon things and get back into the postseason.
Dez and Aaron Rodgers would have the chemistry that we saw with Dez Bryant and Tony Romo. Aaron Rodgers' ability to place the ball exactly where he wants it is pretty much unmatched in the NFL, at least as far as I'm concerned. We've seen him make that back shoulder throw repeatedly. That's what Dez Bryant loved. That was a big issue with Dez and Dak. Romo and Dez would get in the red zone, and it was a touchdown almost every time, because the back shoulder fade, when thrown properly, is not coverable because Dez is so big. Romo was so accurate on that throw. Aaron and Dez would do the exact same thing. So I think Green Bay and Dez, at least in what I would prefer from a fantasy and on-field production perspective, I think would be the best one for both parties involved.
All right, so the Packers are there at number 4. Let's go out west to Santa Clara for number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. Somebody in the comments section, Kenny, said Niners Nation. Kenny, pretty sure it's Niner Empire, but nobody's coming at you right now, so I guess you're safe. We shall see. For the 49ers, though, there is a salary cap space for them. they don't necessarily have the need at wide receiver. It seems like they are quite confident with their core right now. But Dez could be a nice body in the red zone.
I know that was the report, and it does make some sense, but I always back in mind, I go, but are they really? Like, are they really going to bank on these?
I think they're okay.
Like, I agree. And I think at this point in the year, there are very few teams that need a position.
Yeah, like Seattle was definitely up there originally, but then they got Marshall.
I still think they could. Dez is better than Brandon Marshall. That's a whole other discussion. Yeah. Marshall might not even. I'm not convinced he's going to make the roster, by the way, but that's beside the point. The Niners, no, they don't need a wide receiver. But wouldn't they be better off? I mean, what I would do if I'm San Francisco, you have Garcon and Goodwin. Bring Dez in to be another third option for San Francisco. You push off on the Trent Taylor year for another season. Let his breakout year be next year. Let Dante Pettis get acclimated for a season. Redshirt Richie James. Aldrick Robinson is whatever. Bourne and Burbridge and Bolden, I think, just got suspended as well. So, they got some nice, intriguing young pieces, but none of them are really Dez Bryant. Now, you hope Pierre Garcon comes back healthy and is that guy. We saw how good Goodwin was down the stretch, but I think that Goodwin, Garcon, even Pettis and Taylor are all different types of players than Dez Bryant.
Definitely different.
I think Jimmy G could really like Dez Bryant in the red zone and on those jump balls. Now, I think Garcon can do a little bit of that. Dante Pettis is kind of more of a route runner in my eyes than a true go up and get it type big body that we know that Dez Bryant is. So I don't know if the Niners actually have somebody who's truly like Dez Bryant. And that's why I think it's still a good fit for San Francisco. You go out, you get him, you bring him in. And yeah, you want to feature more of George Kittle. I get that. He showed some real promise last year as a rookie out of Iowa. I just think if you get Dez Bryant, even if he's not the actual number one guy,
and he won't be,
I think he would fare really, really well in San Francisco. So I know that some Niners fans don't think that they need Dez Bryant, and I do get that as well. I get that. I understand where you guys are coming from, but you can't tell me it wouldn't be an upgrade over even if it's just Aldrick Robinson.
Well, it certainly helps the situation from a football ability standpoint. Here's where my worry is with the 49ers signing Dez Bryant. Locker room perspective, mental perspective, and really, Tom, just throwing a wrench in terms of the process that John Lynch has built here.
And that's a very good argument, and that's why some of these veterans are unsigned. The NFL is very ageist. They don't like old players. They like young guys that are cheap and can develop. We've seen Dez Bryant's peak. He's not going to be any better than he was back in 2014-15 when healthy.
Yep.
He's not going to be that guy ever again. But I think if you put him on a new team, I think his efficiency goes up. He can still be a good red zone guy for you. And I think he would fit well in San Francisco. And, of course, Dez has shown interest in San Francisco. Of course, he does the
Instagram
comment and then delete, and I bet he does that again before he signs as well. But I just think if you put him with Goodwin and Garcon and you rotate in Taylor and Dante Pettis, those five players is actually a really, really good wide receiver core. As of right now, I think it's kind of more average to above average, but putting Dez on this team, I think helps him take that next step forward when the Niners have playoff aspirations this year.
All right, so we've got the 49ers here at number 3 on the list. Let's take a look at number 2. We'll stay in the NFC, the New York Giants. And Tom, you're telling me that after signing Russell Shepard, they still need Dez Bryant?
Yeah, I am. Okay, I am telling you that. It was funny, one of my most liked tweets ever was Brandon Marshall saying, sorry, there's no room for Dez Bryant, and then getting cut 2 days later. Favorite, best thing ever. So the Giants, I actually really like their top 2 guys. I am obviously a huge fan of Odell Beckham, who isn't on the field-wise. I'm a big fan of Sterling Shepard. And you do have Evan Ingram to almost be your number 3 guy, especially in the red zone. And Saquon Barkley will again be a focal point of that offense. So you do have to spread the balls around a little bit there. But Lattimore, Shepard, and Roger Lewis, who you guys want to go with out there?
That's rough.
You got 2 guys at receiver. And if you want to make Lattimore a special teams guy, I think that Lattimore and Russell Shepard are repetitive. They're guys that are best on special teams and aren't going to make major impacts on the wide receiver catching the ball side of things. So I would bring in Dez Bryant if I were the Giants, because that gives me all of a sudden Dez, Saquon, OBJ, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, hopefully a better offensive line, and Eli Manning that isn't as bad as we've seen last year's with a bad offensive line and poor players around him. So you put Dez on this Giants team, no matter what, you're getting 2 unreal games from Dez Bryant each year against the Cowboys. So
at least.
I'd pay $3 million for that if I'm the Giants, if I'm going to get massive games from Dez Bryant against those teams, no matter what. And then you're going to get better games as well. Producer Harris would argue in favor of Roger Lewis before the show here.
Oh, God.
Roger Lewis is bad. He is not a good NFL wide receiver. So I am all aboard if I'm the Giants going after Dez Bryant. Now, again, I do think that there's a little bit of the locker room issue here. I actually don't know how much Dez and OBJ would get along. I know that I think they would be friends off the field.
They've been working out.
Yeah, but it's different when all of a sudden you're competing for the same passes.
Fair.
Because they had been working out. And I do think that they'd get along off the field, but I just worry about the locker room, oh, Dez isn't getting his. Oh, OBJ's not getting his now. All of a sudden, how does that play out? So that's just a little bit of a lesser concern for me, but I agree with you, Cam. I kind of think that they'd be okay.
I don't want you to get sidetracked here, but everybody in the comments section right now is saying that Dez perhaps could be an elite wide receiver still. So I don't want you going on a tangent, but I'm just saying that's what people are talking about.
I guess it depends on how you define elite.
Yeah.
And we're not going to see Dez Bryant be the same guy he once was. The burst isn't there. The route running hasn't come along the way that it should have. But I am still pro Dez Bryant. I believe that worst case scenario, Dez Bryant can be a number 2 receiver for you, I'd say pretty easily. I mean, he's easily the number 2 on the Giants. And going back to the 49ers, I don't know if he's their actual number 1, but I could see him putting up some of the best numbers on that team. So, and there are some teams, by the way, Harris, that Dez Bryant would still be the best receiver on the team. Now, that's not to say he's one of the top 30, but I do still think there are teams that could desperately need Dez Bryant. One of them, by the way, is still the Cowboys, but that's beside the point. He's not coming back, by the way.
All right, the Giants are at 2. Let's go to the top team for Dez Bryant, the Buffalo Bills. Could you actually see this happening, Tom?
This is such a bad wide receiver core. It is mind-boggling.
Get ready for this depth chart,
You've
folks.
got Kelvin Benjamin, who we know is almost a tight end. Zay Jones, who's out there doing weird things.
Dancing around nude.
And cutting himself and getting all bloody and just having looks like bad stuff going on. And then it's Andre Holmes, Jeremy Curley, Rod Streeter, Kalen Clay, best known as the guy from Utah who dropped the ball before he scored and cost Utah a huge win. Brandon Riley, formerly of Nebraska. Malachi Dupree, who I like, but is not going to be the next great LSU wide receiver. That might be DJ Chark. Austin Proehl, that's Ricky Proehl's dude.
Yep.
And then Ray McLeod, who was kind of a safety receiver or cornerback receiver hybrid at Clemson. There's nobody on this roster.
There's nobody
This
there.
is by far the worst wide receiver core in the NFL, and it's not even close. Now, I look forward to Bills fans telling me why it's not so bad. I can't wait to see how the hoops are jumped through on that one.
Spin zone.
It's atrocious. Dez Bryant is the best receiver on that team. I know that Benjamin can maybe be a similar guy to Dez based on the way they play as big-bodied threats near the red zone. Dez Bryant is instantly a starter for that team. You go Benjamin and Dez on the outside and Zay Jones in the slot. And if you end up playing Josh Allen, well, there's the big guy to go up and catch his high passes.
Boom. Connection.
I think if I'm the Bills, I am going to go get somebody quickly to get in Dez Bryant. You have to find somebody there real fast.
All right, so we've got the Buffalo Bills there as the top team for Dez Bryant. And let's summarize the entire list here. Buffalo at 1. We've got the New York Giants at number 2. San Francisco 49ers check in at number 3, Tom. Green Bay Packers are at 4. We'll get that up in a second. And the Colts are there at number 5. You're going Buffalo. That is the favorite.
That is, I think, the most logical fit. Because Buffalo just needs somebody. They have to go out and get somebody up there. If you're the Bills, you need more help there. If you're the Giants, I think the Giants make sense as well. I don't know if the Bills are the actual favorite, but I think they're the most logical fit, if that makes sense, Cam. In reality, I think those top 4, you can flip them in any order that you want, at least in my eyes, Cam. Because they all need help there.
All right, so that's the rundown there at the top 5 teams for Dez Bryant. We'll see where he goes.
He'll go somewhere. He's not washed like some will try and tell you.
One of the more interesting storylines as we go throughout the offseason, no doubt about that. You guys
I think I saw Panthers and Browns in there.
I did see Panthers, yes.
I could see it. They were just on the outside, but I think drafting DJ Moore kind of limited them. The Browns, they don't need more receiver help, frankly.